Does it get cold or snow where you live? Well, you're in luck, because today we're going to talk about winter concealed carry. Hi everybody, welcome back to LocaCarnivore. We are your hunting, guns, and adventure channel for smart people, and you're smart because you're watching us instead of somebody like, I don't know, one of these golden pizza eating people or people that put Lamborghinis in choppers or whatever. You know who I'm talking about. At any rate, you're with us because you're smart, so let's get on with it. Now remember, you're going to want to stay for the entire video here because we've got great information throughout this video. And on top of that, we've got a humorous little zinger at the end of the video, which we always do, and I'm sure you're looking forward to that. Hey, share this video with everybody you know. Let's put this thing out there. Let's make this thing go viral. As we said in the opening bit, we're talking today about concealed carry during wintertime. It is very different than carrying in warmer conditions, summer, spring, even fall. Now, a proper discussion of winter carry requires us to look at 4 different areas. And the first one is going to be the guns for winter carry. Number 2, we're going to look at the ammunition requirements because there are different considerations than when people are wearing light clothing and you're carrying smaller guns. 3, we're going to look at the holsters and how you're going to actually carry the weapon. And 4, we'll look at clothing. And of course, the clothing will affect the holsters. You'll see how that goes. So there's going to be a little bit of overlap there. So let's talk about the holsters for winter carry. Again, your considerations are different. Now that we have heavy clothing on, we aren't limited to something like an inside the waistband holster, which is very commonly used for during warmer weather when we're wearing lighter clothing, because we want that gun tucked in as far into our body as possible, and we want any bulging or whatever smoothed out by the outer profile of our clothes, so we don't have a distinct bulge on our side, or for you appendix people in the front. So as we just said, you don't have to go to an inside the waistband holster. This is an example, and pick your favorite gun, pick your favorite holster, whatever you want to do. This is an example of what you can carry in the winter. Now we can go to an outside the waistband holster because we generally are going to have garments that are going to come down and cover a lot better. And right here you see a 1911 10mm Ronin in a older Bianchi Ranger pancake holster. It's made out of ballistic nylon, but you can get whatever you like. However, you do want something that's still going to tuck that gun in quite a bit if you can. Now this setup will still work under a medium weight jacket as long as it has the length to cover up. And remember, you have to test your length. You have to lift your arms to see if the hem of the garment's going to come up and expose the bottom of the holster. But as long as that's not happening, you can carry it that way. So we can go with somewhat lighter, but particularly when we have the heavy parkas on and stuff, let's get everything outside. We can put our ammo on and everything else, your flashlights and all that. We can get all this stuff out of our pockets, which is really the nice thing to do, and get it on the belt where we can get at it quickly. If you like what you see here and you'd like to support us better, come and join our Patreon family. The link's in the description down below. And depending on your level of support, you'll get various wonderful things from us, including a valuable guide to hunting cartridges, which we know you'll love. Let's talk about shoulder holsters. This is a time where shoulder holsters really shine, is during the winter, because like we said, it can be difficult to get to that weapon. The other thing is, especially if you're sitting in a vehicle, getting to the gun, getting all the fabric out of the way of your clothing layers, and then getting the gun out and presenting it can become problematic when you're sitting in a car. Right. So the shoulder holster. Now this is a horizontal shoulder holster rig from Galco. If you were old enough to remember the old Miami Vice series with Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas, etc., you'll remember that Don Johnson pretty much made this thing famous. In fact, Galco now calls it the Miami rig, or they have a version that's called the Miami rig. At any rate, what it does is it carries the gun horizontally, and it gives you offside ammunition. If you're a police officer, you can put your cuffs there, all sorts of groovy stuff. But what this does for us is when we have our heavy garment on, we can now get directly to the gun without having to fish underneath for it. There are some problems with the holster configuration. Some people want to go with a vertical holster. That's okay. If you're carrying a longer barreled weapon, the vertical holster is the way to go, because with this type of rig, as you can see, there's a bit of printing with the gun, and if you have a very long barrel, it's just going to poke right out the back of your jacket. Basically, you'll walk around looking like, well, you have something going on that normally would go on down lower on your anatomy, but it's out the back of your back, so people are going to really wonder about what planet you're from. At the very least, the smart people will go, oh, there's a gun under there. So we want to go with something a little bit shorter. This is a Glock Model 19 with it's about a 4-inch barrel, give or take. And you might even want to go a little bit shorter than that. So like the Glock 43X or guns in that type of class with a shorter barrel but a longer grip. You'll see that this allows you to have a fairly long grip. And you could even wear a jacket that just came down to just below your belt line, and this will work just fine. So that's a good advantage of this holster. The downside, it does make you look a little bulky in the middle, depending on your build and depending on the garment you're wearing. That may or may not print for you. So you do have to try it out, check it out. And again, the holster does lean more towards having a shorter barrel. If we have a long barrel, then the old classic Dirty Harry style vertical holster where the gun grip is right here and the barrel is going straight down our side might be the way to go. You can definitely go with a 4-inch or 5 or even a 6-inch barrel in that case. However, your draw still has to be out the front, and the grip of the gun will tend to print quite a bit depending on how large the grip is, etc. It's a good way to carry a full-size 1911 as well as in that vertical. If you go horizontal, you'll have to go with at least a Commander with a 4¼ inch barrel or the old officer's ACP. That has problems too. Those smaller 1911s are renowned for not being terribly reliable. And here's why I like winter carries so much. I mean, the fact you've got such heavy clothing on lets you can go wild on what you're carrying. Let your imagination run wild with you. As we had in the quick hook at the beginning, I wanted to show you my double end frame Galco Miami Classic rig. And this is really cool. I mean, if you're a revolver person, you don't have to carry necessarily extra ammunition. You just got your New York reload here. I would suggest, though, you go with matched size guns. This is this got a 4-inch end frame and then about a 3-inch end frame on the other side for the backup 44 and 41 Magnum respectively. Personally, if I was going to do this a lot, I would carry a matched set of guns, same caliber, same weight, same length, or you could go like 357 and a 38, or just, why not just two 357s? They're not that much bigger or heavier, and as we said, 38's not the best, but I mean, let your imagination run wild. This is perfectly concealable with the proper garment. You use a big, heavy down parka, and this thing is basically going to disappear. You've got your primary weapon and your backup weapon ready to go on your body. You could even put that little snub revolver down in your front pocket. So now you've got 3 guns on you, ready to go, and especially if you're a revolver person, this is a really great way to go. Or you could carry 2 semi-autos. You could carry 2 Glock 19s or whatever you wanted, plus your backup in your pocket, wherever you wanted it, or in your coat. So there you go. All the fun and games that can be had in winter carry. I know you're watching this on the channel, but we have great content for you also over on our website, LocaCarnivore.com. Links down in the description there. And we have a store, yes, so you can get some LocaCarnivore branded merchandise, so we'd appreciate your support that way as well. Go ahead and comment. We'd love to hear from you. Those comments really help us to improve our content. And here you can see how easily a big coat like this will conceal even a large gun in an outside the waistband holster. This might be just a little short. I don't know if you can see. No, it looks like it still covers it up. You might want a coat that's a little bit longer. Now the big problem though we have to deal with is the fact that it's cold out. Normally when we're wearing a cover garment like this that's split down the front, our draw technique would be to sweep the garment out of the way and then get a hold of the gun and draw the weapon. However, if we have to zip up the jacket because it's cold out, now we have a problem. We can't sweep the garment out of the way to get to the gun. Now we have to dig for it. We either have to pull the garment up, and as you can see, even pulling it up, it can interfere at the back of the grip, and you still might have a little conflict with the garment. So one thing you might want to practice with your dominant hand is what I call kind of the ninja draw. You're going to go up, get your thumb out, and so it's up here, and we're going to go up under the hem of the garment, drawing the garment up. You might get a bit of fabric in with the draw. That's going to happen. But then get the gun up, and you can see how the back of the gun, the grip, is interfering with the garment just a little bit. But it's enough to get it up, and then instead of, you usually can rotate the gun straight up and go out to press it out, but you may have to bring it up and then down slightly, and then go with the classic, instead of the up and out, you might have to go with the more classic swinging the gun up into the firing position. And if you've been trained in the old school, the Fairbairn school of point shooting, again, the ready position for that is down about 45 degrees, and the gun comes up to about chest level here. That's the traditional old school way of shooting the gun, but it still works at close range. So it's something you might want to practice. The other thing is, this hand, your offhand, may not have the ability to grab that garment and pull it up out of the way. It might be busy with something. You're trying to hold a car door closed, trying to get into your car, you're trying to hold a door closed, trying to hold somebody away, trying to push somebody who is innocent behind you for protection. There's a lot of possibilities that might tie up this hand. You may have already been shot in this hand. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's good, you need to be able to draw your weapon from under your garments with one hand. It's that simple. Now, as you saw, the barrel length does actually influence a lot of what's going on. So we didn't talk about it in the gun section, but we're talking about it here in the we're going to talk about in the holster section. That longer barrel is a bit of an impediment because you have to bring that gun up super high to get it out of the holster, which really tilts your whole body and push your elbow up, things like that. So a shorter pistol might not be a bad idea, although we can still go with a relatively long grip. So instead, consider how something like this roughly 3 1/4 inch barrel 41 Magnum, that would have a lot less length needed to clear that barrel. And so we want to maybe, instead of a 5-inch barrel gun, a 4-inch barrel, like a Commander 1911, if we're a 1911 devotee, or we could go with a somewhat shorter barrel revolver, but we don't have to go into the pure snubs. Anything between 3 and 4 inches is going to give you just enough leeway to clear that leather a little easier without having to really crank your back up and really crank your elbow up and kind of push yourself over a little bit to get that gun out. So again, that shorter barrel may help quite a bit. Of course, that problem is only made worse if we have multiple garments under here. I've just got the one jacket on, but imagine if I had a vest and a few other things on here. So that's going to be kind of problematic. So again, we've got to work on getting that hem up and learning how to draw when the garment is closed. Now, one really good way to get around that is, instead of a zipper, if you've got something that's got Velcro closure or snaps, just go with that and don't use the zipper. That way you can just snap the thing out of your way, get to your gun, and draw it. So that's something to consider if you can find coats that are like that, but it can be difficult. Not everything is designed that. I mean, this Carhartt just doesn't have that option, but especially if it's got like a storm flap on it, so your heavier parkas are going to have that sort of thing. And again, if you've got like these little tensioning strings at the hem of the garment, don't get crazy with pulling them out so they're in a big loop, because that will be near the gun, and that's just asking to catch like the front sight or the hammer or whatever it might be on the gun. Hey, if you're getting value from this video, do us a favor, give us a big like, that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and go ahead and click on that little bell down there, ring that little bell, so that you'll get notified of all of our future videos, and we know you'll want to see them. Now, if you're carrying an appendix, winter carry can be problematic for you. I've got on this fairly heavy jacket, and then I've got a vest underneath here, which is a hollow fill vest. So I've got 2 garments, and potentially you might even have more, or this upper garment might be bulkier and even longer. Let's say you've got like a thigh length coat on or something like that, a big top coat or whatever. Appendix can be pretty problematic if you have the garments sealed up on the, if you have the garments closed at the front, which if it's very cold out and windy and things like that, you're probably going to have them closed up. So the issue becomes, how do you get the gun out? Well, single-handed, you can see the back of the coat gets caught basically on the back of you. So it's really hard to get that up out of the way. That means you have to go with two hands and you really have to really reach in and grab these things up. And no, I don't have a gun here to show you because, well, frankly, I just refuse to point a gun, loaded or unloaded, at all my important bits. I'm just not going to do it. Obviously, I've already started to get an idea of my opinion of appendix carry. Well, I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. We're going to do a separate video on this later. But you have to have two hands to get this gun out versus if you have the weapon, versus if you have the gun in the 4 o'clock position, as we showed you with that ninja draw. I don't have a gun on right now, but you can get up underneath there with your dominant hand and get to the gun. It's not the smoothest thing on the planet, but it will get the job done. If you're appendix carrying, you might want to have your garments have Velcro or snaps that you can just pull them out of the way really quick, but you still have to get the garment out of the way this way and then go down for the gun, which is counterintuitive to the way you've been practicing on the range when it's warm, which is grab whatever you got covering your cover garment with your offhand and then go at the gun with your dominant hand for the draw. This is going to be completely different. So let's kind of simulate this here. Pretend this is Velcro. So I pull this out of the way, and then I've got to come in with my offhand, pull that other additional garment up, but at least it gets out of the way a lot easier. Then I can establish a contact with the weapon and complete the draw. I did talk about in the opening segment in the gun discussion about how winter carry gets you away from the little mouse guns. However, I will say that winter carry actually does have, there actually is a place for these smaller guns in winter carry. Now you can carry a backup gun much easier. And I tend to prefer these revolvers with a shrouded hammer because if you want to or need to, you can put the gun in your coat pocket and just look like, oh, you've got your hands in your pocket, but as you draw the gun, it's not going to hang up on anything. There's nothing square there. There's not a hammer or anything. So it draws seamlessly and you can get the gun out and present it. Or in an emergency, you can bring the gun up, present the weapon, and fire it through the pocket. Now be prepared for possibly setting your coat on fire. So that might be an issue, but that's going to be a secondary consideration to stopping the person who is trying to do you grave bodily harm or take your life. So, and with the shrouded hammer, you'll be able to fire the full contents of the weapon, all of its ammunition, in this case 5 shots, without it hanging up in the garment. You can have something like a small .380 and you can fire it through the pocket, but you're only going to get 1 round because once that happens, this slide will cycle. I almost guarantee it's going to hang up with the lining of the jacket or the pocket. So that's something to consider. However, if you need to, you can still hang on to it. I wouldn't advise just leaving the gun loose because depending on the pocket configuration, it could print quite a bit. Plus, it's just kind of flappy. And if you're just built just wrong or the gun's just long enough for something, gentlemen, you could smack something you don't feel good smacking with a heavy gun. So especially if this thing is swinging around, you're walking or running or something, it can be most unpleasant and really will cramp up your style. The other thing about like the semi-autos is they have often have a blunt face at the back, and while this gun's doing pretty good, this Glock, because the pocket's pretty wide, it's possible it might hang up a little bit depending on how nervous you are or where your hand was in the beginning. So we want to probably lean towards that revolver. But again, it does allow you to have your hand directly on your gun, which a gun, not your primary gun, but a gun, which this coming out is better than this not being able to be produced in a timely fashion. So we're pretty sure you got some good value out of this. So once again, thank you for spending your valuable time with us today at LocaCarnivore. As always, stay aware, stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you next time on LocaCarnivore.